welcome to another Ask a Responsive Fundraiser, where we take your questions to a fundraising expert so that ultimately you can grow generosity. Today, we're taking your questions to William De Silva. William is the founder and CEO of Simpliphi, a company dedicated to helping nonprofits optimize fundraising with smarter technology, streamlined processes, and data-driven insights to maximize impact. William, thanks for taking the time to answer some questions today.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
We are going to jump right in here with the first question. It's this. We know that operational efficiency is important, but how do we tie process improvements directly to fundraising revenue? I need to make the case for investment to my board, but I'm struggling to make that connection.
You really know how to get me. This is something that I'm very passionate about, and we've been talking a lot about it more and more over the past couple of years, tying operational efficiencies to revenue growth. So important. And part of it, there's so many facets to this, but part of it is there's so much you can save through operational efficiencies, or if you look at your expenses inside of an organization, there's a finite amount of money that you can actually save. There's an infinite amount of money that you can grow, though.
Mm.
And so shifting the focus appeals to a board a lot more. Just to like throw some round numbers around, if your fundraising operations is, let's say, 15% of your annual budget, and you're looking to make a 10% dent in that, that's 1.5% of your annual budget. And that's a big dent at 10%. So you're looking at probably proposing to your board to somehow save less than 1% of the whole total big dollar figure that they're talking about. Very quickly, the conversation go, yeah, but how do we raise 20% more money or 10% more money? So it just shifts it down in terms of priorities. So
Mm.
anytime you can actually relate that back to a goal, especially a goal that the board has set. So if there's a set goal to say, okay, we need to reach this level of giving, we need to grow this activity or that activity, or there's a capital campaign, and you're able to say, well, to be able to do that, to be able to reach the goal that you've set, we need to
Yeah.
set in place some operational efficiencies. Now you're tying the operational efficiencies to a revenue goal.
Yeah.
One way that I've kind of I like to use analogies. Sometimes they're a bit tricky, but one way to frame it is to think of an organization as a garden.
Mm.
And if you're constantly just like pulling weeds and untangling vines and things like that, you're busy kind of tending to the garden. You're not seeing what's working, what's growing, and you're not
Yeah.
able to make informed decisions. But if you're able to have some efficiencies where those kinds of little maintenances just go away, then all of a sudden you're able to see the landscape a lot better. You're able to see what is ripe, what is not, or perhaps there should be some shifts, or you should be investing more in certain fruits versus others. But you're able to get a better control of your garden and get better fruit. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the best analogy I've come up with so far.
Well, I think it's really helpful and hopefully is helping people kind of understand how to approach that, especially as they look at the choices that they want to make, the things that they want to do, and really helping get that buy-in for the board. So,
There's
all right,
three things too. Maybe I just to add one last
yeah,
thing.
please do.
When thinking of operational efficiencies, there's three main markers that really count the most, in my opinion: timely, accurate, and complete. So the bulk of fundraise operations revolves around data, moving data in, moving data out, analyzing data,
Yeah,
interpreting data. So always keep in mind timely, accurate, and complete. And those three markers help you not only be more efficient, but be more prepared. Timely, accurate, and complete can mean being better prepared for, we're talking about boards, better prepared for a board meeting. If you can gain 3 weeks to prepare for your board meeting, you're better informed at the board. Whoever's presenting has better information, better answers to questions that come up. That
yeah,
builds trust from the board to the executives and the staff, that they know what they're doing, and then that just kind of sets in motion a whole new dynamic. So
yeah.
timely,
That's
accurate,
awesome.
and complete.
Very helpful. All right, jumping into question number 2. Our team's excited about automation, but we're unsure where to start. For a team that's just starting out, how can we evaluate which processes are worth automating and which are better left manual?
Great question. And this is something that we come across a lot with our customers and prospective customers. We have a process automation platform that we've built specifically for the nonprofit sector. So we get into a lot of conversations around automation and what should be automated. And there's a few key things to keep in mind for automation. The first thing that I always ask is volume. Volume is the name of the game.
Yeah.
Um, the first thing you should be looking at is how many times am I repeating this task if I'm going to automate it? Because you're looking for savings, but you're also looking for normally looking to reduce kind of the energy suck or drain within the organization. The noise,
Yeah.
I call it noise sometimes. It's not so much only the hours that you spend doing it, but how much just resource drain is it causing the people that are managing it and the people around them, managers or other people that are seeing the noise. So volume really has an impact on that. It's so if you if you're looking at automating something that is perhaps painful, because that's usually the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
This takes me 5 hours or 5 minutes, or 15 minutes, or half an hour to do. Can we automate it? But you only do it once a month. Probably not worth automating, unfortunately. Even if it takes you an hour, you could say 12 hours a month, a year, pardon me.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at automating something that only takes 2, 3 minutes, but you do 6,000 times a year, then there's a much greater saving, even if it's not as painful, because that 3 minute has a nice process that you can follow. It works well. But if you can gain any efficiency, it'll be on the high volume tasks.
Mm.
That's like the really first place to look for is high volume tasks. And then the second thing is high volume but low complexity.
Yeah.
So you want to start automating simple workflows. Anything that's too complex that requires a complex decisional process, there's risk involved in automating. And so those are often left best to be left manual. And so that those two things kind of together really help to prioritize things. And then that's the other thing after that is prioritization. So start with one thing, not with
Yeah.
everything. So set your priorities based on volume, simple tasks, impact as well, and then make priorities. So the impact as well. A few things. I'm getting lost in my own train of thought,
No, it's
but
good. It's good.
starting with manual first. So automating processes that you master manually is important as
Mm.
well. If you've never done the process manually and you don't understand it fully, you will trip up over all the potential problems
Yeah.
when you automate it. And that's got more potential for disaster because you don't have somebody in the process looking for, oh, we didn't think of this scenario. What do we do here? You've automated it. You're not looking at it. So you need to master it manually first. And
Yeah.
um, and the last thing I'd say is if you think of a production line, um, automate stuff that's earlier on in the production line as it has a
Okay.
greater impact. So if, for example, if you're to choose between automating movement of gifts that need to come into your CRM versus automating the acknowledgement letters, and you need to do both, start with moving the gifts in first, and not the acknowledgement letters. You'll gain efficiency across the entire process because you started with what's at the beginning of the process, and then you can do the latter part after. But start with what's earlier on in the whole process.
Yeah. That's a helpful way to think about it. And I think brings some clarity to that question and for people looking to take those first steps. Now, the last question is this. We're struggling with outdated systems that aren't supporting our fundraising strategy, but the pain of making a change is daunting. So how can we assess when it's time to upgrade our technology and what factors should guide that decision?
Yeah, change is daunting as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, Change is never easy, that's for sure. And the idea of change can be even uh, scary to the point that it inhibits change or prevents it from happening. I guess when you know, your question is, when do you know it's time to change? Um, Really, you have to think of it as outgrowing your system. When
Mm,
whatever you are running on, that system and its functionalities, or the way it's designed, is preventing you from doing what you need to be doing.
mm,
That's really kind of the biggest, the most important part that requires you to break out of that system and move to something else. Because no matter, even if you're moving from a system that's not great to a system that's amazing and
yeah,
super user friendly or whatever, it is a huge change nonetheless. And it's very disruptive and it's very costly. So you need to make sure that there's a tie again to the strategy, kind of to the first point. If the board is saying, okay, we need to be doing more of this, and you don't have the system to be able to do it, that's a sign that you've outgrown it. So outgrowing it, kind of like outgrowing a house, I guess. So you, it's you can have your home can be a mess and not optimal, but it's
yeah,
big enough. You just need to clean up. Or
mm,
your house can be too small and you can't do what you need to do, then you need to move. So it's kind of, that's
yeah,
the difference. Sometimes it's just a mess and you need to clean up, but sometimes it's time to leave. And there's
yeah,
certain technologies, there's certain systems that are easier to replace. So when you're thinking about replacing a system, something like something that's donor facing, like fundraising pages, peer-to-peer platforms, those are a little bit easier to replace. They're not easy, they're easier than, say, a
yeah,
CRM that is way more core to the back end of the organization, and it's a bigger project and a heavier lift. So when you're making decisions as well in terms of choosing the system you're moving into, if you're looking at like an online platform, let's say like I mentioned a donation page, think 3 to 5 years. What are we going to be doing in the next 3 to 5 years? Make sure that platform sustains that. In 3 to 5 years, you might continue to choose on that platform. You might be looking elsewhere, but beyond 3 to 5 years, especially for anything that's online, donor facing, it changed. The landscape changes so fast.
right,
If you're talking about a CRM, think at least 10 years. You do
yeah,
not want to do a CRM migration every 3 to 5 years. So you want to make sure that the system you're moving into, it can sustain not only your current needs, but where do you project yourself in 5 to 10 years at least,
yeah,
and make sure that the system can grow with you, that the company backing the system has a growth plan, they're on a growth trajectory, they have the features that you need now, and they're on the same trajectory as you are, basically.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. I know that's so important to us as well. And I think that house analogy is so helpful. So we have two really solid analogies that you brought today. And I'm sure people both learn from them, but we'll also kind of take those with them. So, William, thanks so much for taking the time today to share with us, to encourage and hopefully help
My
train and
pleasure.
grow those listening. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. This was fun.